Hey there, this is the Hippie Carpenter coming to you. We're going to show you how to remove and install a new exterior door and storm door today. And this is the first interior step you're going to want to do. You're going to want to remove the casing trim from the inside so you can access the gap. And we'll show you the next step. Another pro tip when taking off casing, you want to go around with your knife and cut any caulk or paint that is on there before it peels any of the drywall or paint off. You just score your knife around the whole perimeter before you peel off your casing. Here's another pro tip for you. When peeling off your casing or using a pry bar at all ever against drywall or anything, if you put your pry bar up there to go peel off the casing that was once here, it could gouge, could indent the drywall. Things we could do, we could use this. You put your there, and now you can get your pry bar in there, pry against it without putting indentation on the drywall. You could even put your square up there. Whatever you have, it's going to have large mass against that, so you're not prying the pry bar directly against the drywall. So I want to pry against this, but I don't want my pry bar hitting the drywall. I can't get my putty knife in there. So what I'm going to do is take something smaller that does fit into our scenario here. I'm going to use my chisel. I'm going to put my chisel there, put my pry bar behind the trim. Now I'm prying against the chisel, and it's flat and it will not indentate the drywall. The very next step, it's going to be the first step exterior. We need to remove the storm door here, and in this particular case there is a fixed hinge on the top here. We're going to remove that, then we're going to remove these, and we'll show you in the next few steps. I don't know what they did right here, Timbo. The fancy way of fixing the... We're going to show you the next step after we got this hinge off that was for the fixed door. Now we need to get the rails off here on the storm door. That's going to be our first step. The Phillips head, we're going to take our Phillips head out, get the rails off, and the door will come with it. Pretty easy step. Another quick pro tip for you. When you're trying to remove old screws that have been painted over, sometimes it's hard to get your bit in there. What you want to do is either grab a Phillips head screwdriver in this case, or even a flathead, or even use your utility knife. You can score out the paint, or you can even take your flathead, when it's a flathead especially, stick your flathead screwdriver in there, pound it a few times, and then you'll be able to turn it a lot easier. Distracted,
We'll find out.
Yeah. Certain issues, which I will know in just a moment. Once we get this door out. Now that we've removed the rails for the storm door, pretty simple. Got that off. Now we're going to go back inside to our next step. So now that we have the casing off, we want to get in here and cut with our Sawzall to get any nails to remove this whole door jamb and take it out in one piece. To do that, we also have to come out here. We have to remove the old brick molding. So now we will be able to see our gap in between the door. Another quick tip. In this case, we are getting rid of this old brick molding, but if you ever wanted to take trim or brick molding off and save it, the best thing to do is to walk it down. And by walk it down, I mean you pry little by little by little by little instead of hard in one spot. Then it's more likely to break in weak points like this. So usually when they put in a door bow, it goes right through. I guess in this case they wanted to go through the side of the brick molding.
Hey, buddy,
yeah. The back of the molding. I guess we'll work with it. Our next step is we revealed both the inside and the outside by getting those casings off. We got our gap here. Like I said, we want to run our Sawzall through our gap. Now the best way that we can do that before we do that is create a little bit of a gap. We're going to get our pry bar in there, pry it out a little bit, see where we're at. Now we can get our Sawzall and get it in there and go down until we feel a nail and give it a cut. A pro tip, sometimes you can't get your big boy pry bar in there, so you start it with your little boy pry bar, and then you can grow up a little bit to get your gap, to get your big boy in there. Now we have the door. The door and the frame is now removed. Now we've exposed our rough opening. Now we're going to check our door, new door that's going in, and make sure that it fits to our rough opening. If it's not exactly a good fit, we'll show you what to do from there. So now that we have the rough opening, I'm going to go check the size of the door. We're going to check the rough opening. First thing I'm going to do is get my measurement of the width. Now when I do that, I'm going to measure the top, the middle, and the bottom because it could change. Now also, that being said, another way to tell if it's going to change, you put your level up on it and see if it's plumb or not. A lot of existing framing could be off over time. And it looks like we are pretty level, pretty plumb. Plumb means level vertically. So this is our next step. We checked our rough opening. We have the right gap that we want to have for our door. We measured the door, measured the opening. Like I said, you measure the top, the middle, the bottom. You measure for your height, you measure this side, you measure the middle, you measure the side because it could bow. Make sure that it's going to fit all around. You want to usually keep a good 1/4 inch, 1/2 inch gap all around the door so you can shim it out later. If it's a tight fit, it might give you some problems. Step is, we had Johnny Cash over here clean up the sill really good for us. You want to get all dust. We use the vacuum and we dust or brush anything off out of our way. And what we're going to do is now flash it for water. We use our window sticky flash. We're going to show you how to adhere this. You want to cut your piece for the width of the door, plus you want to go 6 inches up on each side. And that's going to flash and help waterproof this. And then we're going to seal it once again with clear Solar Seal. And we're going to put, with our caulk gun, a large amount of the Solar Seal. After we put our sticky on, we'll put this on as well. And now we're going to show you that process. So now I have my sticky cut to size, roughly 6 to 8 inches up each side. Now we're going to peel it one end to the other. You start this end, get it in place, and when you put it on, you're not putting it flush here. You want an overlap like this. You want to overlap it at least a couple inches so you can fold it over, and that's going to help the water go into the flashing down here over the siding so it's not running back into the house. Make sure you smooth out all the bubbles. Now that you have your overlap, what you want to do is cut the corners like so. You want to fold this over and see this is going on the outside of the tar paper here, which is helping waterproof the wood. And it's okay that this is on here. It will be hidden by the brick molding, or if you ever have extra, it's okay to put your door, your trim on, and cut it off later, whatever's exposed. Now this is a very important part. If you ever have any other layers here, you're going to want to stick it through here so it can run into the proper channel. One more pro tip for doing the sticky. This goes for windows as well. When you do the bottom inner sill of the window, which we'll be showing you in some more videos, common mistakes are made on that. Very simple process, as long as you do it in the proper order. Now here in these corners, now that I cut and folded this over, see this corner is exposed. This corner is also exposed on this side. What we're gonna do is cut in what I call a bow tie. Cut a square, fold it in half. You're going to cut a trapezoid shape, basically just cutting there to corner, there to corner. And when you unfold it, it's like doing snow angels or snowflakes. Here's our bow tie. When peeling the sticky, another pro tip is sometimes it's hard to get with your finger. You can take your blade, get your blade in there. Very simple, watch your fingers, very careful to peel it back for you. Now we're gonna apply this here. This is gonna cover our corner. Still a little bit exposed there, so we're going to want to cut another small piece and do it again. So now that we have our window seal flashing tape on here, what we want to do, and we know our rough openings right, we're going to get our door over here. We're going to dry fit it, which means put it in to make sure we don't have the brick molding or anything hitting the outside here. Anything in our way of the door. And then once that's done, we will tip the door forward, one guy holding it out here. We'll have our solar seal in a caulk tube right inside here, and when the door is tipped up, we're then again going to apply all of our solar seal to double seal this waterproof, put it back up, and we'll seal all the other gaps after it is in the rough opening. Just in case, watch it, there's a gap in between. Take that out. Right here. It's hitting both corners on top. Hi there, so we did the first dry fit, didn't work. We made our adjustments for the rough opening size. Now we're going to take the door and dry fit it once again. And when we dry fit it, if it works, which we're hoping it will this time, we're gonna lean it forward, and then we're gonna put our solar seal with our caulk gun all on the threshold plate there. And then we'll show you what to do next. So now we're gonna solar seal all possible water leak places. Is gonna be all the corners. You wanna get some in there. Flashing needs to go down. Got one bead all the way across here. All the corners are gonna be good. And then you can just run this here. And you wanna make your tip pretty large. We're not doing caulking in corners. All you're trying to do is get a lot of this seal out. And another place you're gonna want to solar seal is up the top on the brick molding right here. So when we put it up against the house, it will seal itself in.
Not enough room or?
Yep.
It's worth it.
So now that we have it in place, we just want to tack our corners. You always start with the hinge side first, and you're going to want to put some tack screws near the hinge side, and then you're going to want to take one of these screws out and put a longer screw in on each hinge that goes all the way through the jamb to get you in. So every hinge spot, all three, will have one longer screw. So you take this one out and you put a longer one in. And for now, we're just tacking one on the bottom, one on the top, so we can make sure everything's square. So you're always going to want to put your shims in wherever you screw, on your non-hinge side or on your hinge side when you have your gap. When you put your screws in, you want your shims there. That's where you put your screw through. And you're always going to want to put a screw in between the deadbolt and the regular lock set here. And wherever else you see that your reveal needs to be. And we're going to bring you inside and show you what we're talking about with the reveal. This is where your shims come into play, how you're going to want to use them. When we talk a reveal, you put it in to see if it's square. Now you look right here and you see this gap between the door and the door jamb itself. See, it's about solid 1/4 inch all the way through right here. That's exactly what we want. Now let's say it was tighter on the bottom than it is on the top, then you're going to want to shim that larger spot over. So what you do is you take a shim and you go on your other side of your door jamb between the wall and the framing, and you beat your shim in there, and that's where you're going to put a screw. And remember, you want to go a little bit tighter when you beat your shim in there, because when you put your screw into your door jamb and into the shim, it's going to suck it down a little bit more. So I didn't really want this area of the door jamb to be sucked over, but I had to put a screw in here. So when I put the screw in there, I got it to its tight point and it sucked the door jamb over. So what I did was then I backed it out a little bit, countersink it. And when I say countersink, that means the head of the screw is below there. You can see that the whole door jamb moved. Now what I'm going to want to do is, since I don't want it sucked over, I back it all the way up. And now I'm going to slightly turn it down. If you have a drill like mine that can go from an impact setting to a lower drill setting, do that. If not, with just a regular impact, just go real light. Just get it to where it's barely countersink. Now it's not sucking it back over. Now we're going to show you how to install the handle set. In this case, we have a bolt hole and a handle set hole. Right now, we only have where we're going to reuse the handle set that was there. I'm going to show you how to reuse that. In temporary time, you can get these at any hardware store. It's just a plate cover. It covers over this, so you can always add a bolt later. And we'll show you that in another pro tip video. So here's how to install your handle set. You make sure that these fit in. And then you take your striker, and these are adjustable in length. You can adjust them here with these pins. In this case, we want it at that length, because you can extend them out if need be. Now, if you can get a profile view here, see it doesn't hit too far, so we have it at the desired length. This is in the center. So what we're going to do is now fit that there, and we're going to screw this on. Handle sets and doing hinges, a lot of times you don't want to use power tools unless you go really slow. It's better to use a hand screwdriver so you don't strip things out. Are you good, Paul? Now that we have the striker on, and make sure that your striker is going this way with your straight edge this way, because the door is going like this. If you have it flipped, it will not work properly. This beveled edge needs to go towards where it's going to hit on the strike plate. Remember that. So now we're going to install the handle. You line it up in here. It's pretty self-explanatory. You get the square into the square. You get the other side square onto the square knot here. And another thing is, we have to take this hole and this hole and line them up with here and here. This is for our pin to go through. So in this case, sometimes they'll be horizontal. In this case, it's vertical. We have one spot up here, one spot down there. We're gonna put it on and try to line them up. So now we want to make sure that these are really snug by hand. You don't want to strip them out. But if they're loose, they will loosen up over time with a lot of pulling. Now sometimes that will happen and you'll have to adjust these later. Now next thing, now that this works, functions properly, you want to check to make sure that your striker is going to hit in the desired spot. And we're going to make sure it lines up with our plate. And we can show you some adjustments, and there's a lot of different scenarios that could happen. We'll show you later in other pro tips. So now I lined up my striker to my strike hole. I think this is where my strike plate's gonna have to go. I'm gonna put one screw in it for now, in case I have to move it, and then make sure the door can close and the striker is going into the hole properly. I'm gonna look through the profile of the door to make sure if it's not, to see if it's too high, too low, or if the striker plate needs to go in or out for it to go in the desired hole. So now we're just gonna tack this and go ahead and give it a shot. So now I tacked the one screw in the strike plate. We're gonna try it and make sure it fits. And like I said, we're gonna look through the profile. If it doesn't, it seems to lock just fine. Now if it didn't, you'd wanna look down here and look in your gap and see if you need to move it up, down, in, or out. Now that we have the one tacked on there, we're safe to put the other one in now that it closes. Now here's the thing is, the reason I didn't put both is because if I had to move it, then I'd have two holes that I'd have to fill. And we're gonna have to show you how to shim properly. If you have screw holes in any door jamb, any hinges, we're gonna show you in some later pro tip videos of how to fix a stripped out hole and where it needs to be. So now we're gonna install our temporary deadbolt cover plate. It doesn't have anything to do with the deadbolt itself, just covers the hole. And we're gonna show you in later videos how to install deadbolts. End it up. We're just gonna lock it down with your screwdriver. Make sure that you have the side that's screwed down to the interior of the door so nobody can take it off from the outside. Yep. I want to level this mark that I put a quarter inch up. I want to make sure that it's level across. I have my 4-foot level here. It doesn't fit in our hallway here. So here's our pro tip. I'm gonna go ahead and take my torpedo level that obviously reaches only so far. We're gonna take this board though, that has a nice straight edge. You gotta make sure, look down and make sure it's not warped or anything with a large straight edge like this. I'm gonna put that on my mark. Put it on my mark over here. Put my torpedo on it and move it to the desired levelness. There you go, what to do when you don't have the proper size level. Here's our next step for doing the interior on the door. The door is in and set now, we just have to put the trim and casing on it. So the first thing I want to do is make sure that I have enough width here and enough width here. I grabbed a sample piece here of our casing that we're using today, and it's going to fit just right where the existing casing was. In some cases, it might be too wide. You always want to hold it just on this side of the strike plate, and it might be too wide for here, so then you would have to rip this down in some way or trim it back some way. to get your casing back on there. In this case, it fits on perfectly for us. So now we just need to get our 2 side measurements, and then we're gonna put our top on. And we're gonna show you how to do 45 cuts to match those tops on the top. So the first step of our casing is, I put a level on our jamb up here on our door, and I made sure that this is level. So then I put a 1/4 inch up mark there, 1/4 inch mark up this way, because I want the casing to sit back about a 1/4 inch on here. So now I do a measurement on this left side from the ground where we want our trim piece, desired trim piece to go from here to the beginning of our 45 point. And I did it here as well, and we have the same matched up number, which is good because that means it's going to be within square. It's okay if your measurements don't match up on the same side within about a 1/4 inch. You know, we're going to show you more videos later of how to adjust your 45 angle according to things not being level. Here's another pro tip whenever you're doing case molding or anything around a door. In this particular case, we just did a re-installation of this door, and we're going to go ahead and put some trimming on. But we do know that this existing flooring is going to stay. Now, one thing you really want to know is, are they going to add new flooring? Are you going to be putting flooring on after? If that's the case, you're going to want to have a different desired gap on the bottom, because if you go all the way down to the ground and you know you're going to be putting on flooring later, you're going to want to know how thick that flooring is so you can hold it up just that amount for the flooring to go underneath. So here's another hippie pro tip for you. We're putting on casing here around a doorway. I'm going to show you how to do 45s. By 45 cuts, we mean a 45-degree angle. We got our desired height here. I measured on each side of the door, which you're going to want to do your left and your rights first, and then your top last. Now, in this case, I got my measurement here of 80.5 heavy. And we're going to start, that is going to be my short point. And when I say short point, here's an example. This is a 45. This is your short point of your 45. This is your long point. So when you're measuring, you're going to want to measure from your square point, which would be this square, 90-degree square. You're going to want to measure from square to long point, would be square to long point. You want to measure square to short, that's square to short. And if we were to bevel the other side like this, then it would be short point to short point, long point to long point. So here we're going to set our 45-degree angle on our door. We want this to be our short point. We don't know what our long point is. We don't have to measure it. All we have to do is know where our short point is, and we're going to go to 45 degrees. Lock it in at 45 degrees. This is where you're going to want to eye your saw up right here onto our short point, which you can see. Then when we put the saw down, it tells us where our long point is going to be anyways. You let the saw do the work. Here's a hippie pro tip. Whenever doing anything like this on the miter saw here, you always want to make sure that you are completely square and completely flat and flush here. Now, that might not be that easy if you have that situation. So what you do is find something, anything, that can help prop it up to desired height. Now I still want to make sure that I'm holding down. You can see here that it's not all the way down, so I'm going to have to push. Or you can find something to shim it up just a little bit more, like so. Now I don't have to push down as much, but you always do want to be firm, watch your fingers, and then do your cut. So now you can see that you have your profile here. This is the fatter outside, the thinner inside. So that means you put this to the outside of your frame. This is going to go in the inner part of whatever frame, window, or door you're doing. And this is our left side. As you can see, it's going to go up like this. That means you want to do the complete opposite on the right side. So now you have your profiles like this. They have to be facing each other. So now here's our short point here, here's our short point here, and we're gonna cut from this way out. So now you see that this is our short point. We had our 45 over here. We now cannot run it that way. We need the 45 to go this way. So we're gonna set our 45 to our other side, to the right. So here's another hippie pro tip for you. We got some leftover solar seal. We don't want this to go to waste. Most people know you can put a nail in it, a screw in it, but see that nail only went so far down. So what I like to use is zip ties. You put a zip tie all the way down in there. That's easy to pull out later for when it hardens. You can even put the zip tie in there and cap that larger area off in the bottom with your nail. Boom. Now it's an easy pull, and you still have a hole there for the caulk to come out. So now we have our two side pieces that are going to go on first for our trim. We're going to go ahead and focus on our left side. Then we're going to do our right side. Then I'll show you guys how to do a double 45 for the center top piece. This casing piece, it fits just fine in between this trim here and in between our strike plate. Now remember, you see this reveal right here, you got about an 1/8 to 1/4 inch gap on your door jamb. That's what you want. When you want to keep it solid all the way through and even. Now, we want to make sure that our short point lines up with our same height that we had here. So in this case, we might have to raise it just a little bit to get to that point. So that leaves our 1/4 inch gap for our top piece as well. And I showed you in videos earlier, we made sure that this is level all the way through, so it'll match up with the right and the left, and the center will be fine. Now, this can go on no problem. We're gonna shoot it. You're always gonna wanna make sure you have the right size nail in here. If you have too long nails, you could hit electrical, you could hit plumbing, you could hit anything in this. So in this case, we know exactly what our depth is. You gotta measure it, exactly what our bite is, and by bite we mean how much is going into the nailed surface. And you got to make sure that you're nailing to something solid and not just going through anything hollow. In this case, we know what's behind here. We know that it is our king stud to the frame of our door. So this is our casing on. It's flush. We have that reveal that we wanted. Now if you come look at the profile of it though, you see that it's set pretty tight where we want it down here, and then we'll caulk that gap. But this gap grows. And the reason it grows is because the door jamb doesn't sit completely flush with the drywall here. Now, in a lot of renovation situations, you're not gonna always get that. So sometimes when you have a larger reveal, we'll show you some tricks in later videos of how to shim that out. But in this case, we got it close enough to where we can caulk it. Now on a deeper caulk, you're gonna want to put some sort of backfill, and we'll show you backfill tricks later as well. So here we go. We're about to put this on, right? This trim piece here is in our way. So we're not gonna rip our whole trim piece down. Makes a lot more sense to cut this one back. Now you could pop this off, go cut it on any saw, and trim nail it back on. In this case, we have our multi-tool, vibrating tool, cut-off tool. I put a mark here by putting my trim piece where it needs to go. And then I put a scribe mark with my pencil. Now I know where that needs to be, and we're gonna go ahead and cut that back. And if you ever have a larger gap after your cut, it's okay, you can always caulk it. We could just do so many videos. Boom. We have our right and our left on, and I told you to put it at the desired marks there, so it's level. Now we're going to measure for our double 45 top piece. You can measure from long point to long point, or from short point to short point, whatever's easiest for you. That's probably best to measure from short point to short point. So here is our top piece. We're gonna do our double bevel. So 45 on each side. Remember, the thinner part goes to the inner part of the door jamb or whatever opening you're working with, and the fatter part goes onto the outside. Now, we have 32 and 3/8. And remember, with trim, you always wanna add a little bit. So I'm gonna go 32 and 3/8 heavy. That means 1/16 more than 32 and 3/8. So I'm gonna get my measurement, but overall, we've got plenty to work with here. It's at 48 inches. We need 32 and 3/8 inches. So first thing I'm gonna do is, before I even measure anything, I want to measure from my short point to my short point as I did inside. We're just gonna go ahead and get the proper 45 on here right now, since we have excess to cut off. So it doesn't matter where we cut it, just make sure that we're gonna have our 32 from inside to inside. We had 48 to play with, so we'll be plenty fine. So now that we have our reference point, that's our short point here. We want our 32 and 3/8 heavy. Check that. We're at 32 and 3/8 heavy, almost 32 and a half. That's okay. Always go long with trim, and you can cut it off if it doesn't fit. So now we had our angle like this to get our 45 this way. We want this our short point. So our long point's gonna be here. We wanted to move to our other 45 here. Line it up with our mark. Good to go. So now we cut our top piece. We're gonna dry fit it, of course, before we put it on. Make sure that our short point matches up there. It doesn't match up on this side, so you got a little bit of a gap, but this board is a little bit bowed. So what you do is, we're gonna attack this side. Remember, when nailing, you know what you're nailing to behind it. Know that there is a header here, so we have nailer all the way behind it. We want to put one in here and one there, as so, and we'll caulk these later. But now that I have this, we're gonna walk it down. So I want the same reveal on the top all the way through. So now if I put that there, now I can pull it and bow it down, so I no longer have that gap. Good at the end. If you ever have a larger gap, or if it's tight here and larger there, that means that you're not at a 45 degree, or one of your angles may be off. About these new screen windows, you take the window handle and install it right here, but they're retractable. So we showed you how to install our storm door, and the last finishing touches were the trim and the caulk marks. If you want to come closer, we'll show you a little bit. You put screws in here. We caulked that. We caulked our seams here, caulked our seams here, caulked our seams here. So that way they can paint it. Mind you, that's not our caulk. We caulked these seams as well. And that's our finishing touches. So now that our trim is all put in as well, like we said, we caulked outside, caulked our seams in here, caulked our nail holes, and it's ready to be painted. And that completes our installation for the exterior door. We have the storm door as well that we installed. And if you'd like, we can follow another video we have for installation step by step on the storm doors. Here, how it functions. Our storm door, like I said, follow our other videos so you can see full installation process on that. Everything works on here. Close, lock. And then here's our handy dandy retractable screen. This homeowner in particular wanted the screen above and a retractable screen such like this, so the dogs can't scratch that. So follow our page for more if you want to find out where you can find these. You have the same problem with children or dogs with the lower part. These are a new design. We can help you find them. And that completes our installation for exterior storm doors, exterior entry door. Thanks for following the Hippie Carpenter here. We'll show you more videos in the future of how-tos.